絵本作家のリッキー先生に聞いてみよう。後半編も楽しい話やちょっと突っ込んだ話まで盛りだくさん。それでは行ってみましょう。
Okay, I have a lot more questions. Your favorite book as a child and as an adult?
Oh dear. Oh my goodness. Okay, as a child, can I say two?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so these are older level than picture books. These are kids stories. I love the BFG, and the BFG is the Big Friendly Giant. And I love George's Marvelous Medicine. And both of those books were written by, his name is Roald Dahl. I think he was a Norwegian author. Sadly, he already passed away, but yeah, he's the man who wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Okay, that's funny.
So he has written so many very, very popular children's books. But every school vacation, I read those two books again and again and again, and I never got bored of them. And I bought them for my daughters, and my daughters love them too. Very crazy, wacky, fun stories.
Random.
Yeah. The things that happen are a little bit kind of these days. If you wrote those books, maybe people would raise their eyebrows, like, "Is that okay?" But
yeah, like that's what I'm wondering. Was he on something?
Yeah. Well, in for example, in George's Marvelous Medicine, the problem is every time George is at home, Grandma is really nice to him when his parents are around, but when his parents go out, his grandma is very mean. And so one day he decides to make a special medicine for her using everything he can find in the house. And he puts literally everything. He puts shoe polish and a toothpaste and shampoo and skin cream, and he makes this crazy medicine. And yeah, like if you tried to make that story today, I think people would be worried about safety. Like, you shouldn't say that to kids. Kids will copy it and hurt themselves. But the book is actually very comedic. I think they were written maybe in the 70s or the 80s. Yeah, when I was a small kid. So they're fun. The illustrated versions are available now, and they're really good fun.
Okay, I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, I recommend Roald Dahl to any parent. Like the level is a little bit higher than the stuff we were talking about before, but it's funny.
Okay, and as an adult, what's your favorite children's book?
Oh no, my favorite children's book now.
Yeah. Like,
right,
you discover as a father.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to come back down to real young level in that case, because at the moment I'm enjoying a book with my kids, especially William, who's the youngest, but also my young students. It's called Dear Zoo.
Oh yes, that's a lovely.
Have you seen it?
Yes.
Yeah, that has had such lovely reactions from every kid who I read it to, and the pop-up version where they open the boxes and the elephant comes out and stuff. Dear Zoo is really, really fun for the kids.
Yeah, but how do you get those English books? Because I don't think it's.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind me mention, I already mentioned like some shop names and stuff, but we often just order from Amazon. You do have to take care when you do that, because they are available on amazon.co.jp. However, sometimes the versions are very different. You know, you expect a book about this size to come, but actually you get something tiny. So you have to be careful to select the correct version. Other times we actually got books in stores like in Shinjuku. They have Kinokuniya,
Okay.
and
Oh,
they
yeah,
have
right,
they have
right.
the English. That's right. Yeah, they have the English department, and they're pretty good. But for the cost, Amazon is better.
Mm,
Or if you have any friends who live overseas,
mm,
buying books from US Amazon and UK Amazon, the shipping is quite expensive to Japan. So you could transfer some money to a friend and then they could buy it for you and send it, and it works out cheaper.
Isn't it still expensive though? Because
I mean, it depends on how they choose to send it. If you trust the post office, you can do it cheaper.
Oh, like in shipping?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. If you don't mind waiting a few weeks, it could be cheaper. But yeah.
I'm concerned about that situation in Japan because over here I can find cheap books or used bookstore. So I have access to many wonderful books, and I want to introduce those books to Japanese people, but they don't have access to the.
Yeah, that is tricky, isn't it? And even though Amazon is global, it has global infrastructure. There are some books that are available in the US store and the UK store, but actually they don't show up if you search for them on the Japanese store. That's quite limiting. For me personally, I'm yet to find a solution to that because there are a lot of books I want to buy for my kids, but I know that it's just, even though sharing books with my kids is such a valuable thing, I'm not really willing to spend that much money to buy them. It's the cost difference is so huge sometimes. Hey, hello.
ちょっともうちょっとご飯食べた？もうちょいご飯ちょう。もう I kicked them out.
No, it's part of YouTubing life.
Yes. Other question. I have tons more questions. Oh, do you go to libraries?
Oh, that's such a good question. I was thinking about this the other day. I'm ashamed to say no. We do have lots of books around at home that the girls bring home from school and from kindergarten, and we share those books together, and they do homework based on those books, that kind of stuff. We don't regularly go to the library, and I was kind of sadly thinking about this the other day because I realized my parents took me to the library a lot when I was a kid, but these days, with smartphones, basically, nobody really needs to go to the library unless they want to. When I was a kid, if you wanted to find out something, you had to go to the library. You couldn't find out any other way, really. And I was starting to wonder, what's it going to be like when my kids are adults? It's probably a stupid question because I think the answer is yes, we will still have libraries, but it makes me wonder, what will they look like? Will they be common? Will they be easy to find? Will they still be big? It's the world has changed so much in the last 15 years, 20 years. But since you mention it, I should make a special effort to take my kids to the library.
Yes, yeah, that would be wonderful. But also at the same time, I don't know if Japanese libraries are, if they have a lot of English books or not.
Yeah. I mean, for me, that's fine because so long as they have picture books, then I don't mind the Japanese text. I always be able to ask questions.
Yes.
And have a discussion with them about the pictures.
Yes.
And sometimes we have made up our own imagined stories. And I can read the text, but the girls are already quicker than me. their reading is lightning fast compared to me. And they will say to me, no, that's not what it says. So I just say, no, imagine. Imagine we have these pictures and we want to make a story about it. What could we say? And then they get it and they are happy to do it.
Wow, that's amazing thing. Thank you for saying that, because I get a lot of questions like, oh, the book you just introduced, isn't it too hard for my child who's just 1 year old or 2? But personally, I've never felt, like that's the case.
No.
We can always talk about the pictures.
Definitely. And then, of course, maybe some people feel that that's, I don't know, like cheating, because you're not really reading the English, and they get too wrapped up in thinking that's the point. But it's really not. Actually, there are always, even if the level is a little bit high and the parent themselves don't know how to read some of the words, that's fine. Don't be worried about that. Don't feel sad about that. There are always going to be some words you can still read. And just practicing those words, just pick this word from the text. What does this say? So, eat together, eat. And also the phonics part, practicing the sounds, helping your child remember this letter makes this sound. Like, I still do that now when I get on the train in Japan. I can't read all of the commercials because I don't know all of the kanji, but the stuff I can read, I like to refresh my memory. So I don't know what it says, but I know that word and I know this character. It's just practice.
Right. Thank you. That's what I was wondering. But you just mentioned being what are you? English person?
Yeah.
You're
That's
from
me.
England or other part of England?
Yeah, I was born in the north of England. I guess I sound kind of Southern England, like kind of standard British English, because that's where I grew up, but I was born in the north of England.
I see. So how is it to live in Japan as an English person?
Actually, it's really enjoyable. People sometimes ask me, why did you stay in Japan for so long? Especially before I got married. Now I'm married and I have kids and stuff. It's kind of obvious and not so many people ask anymore. But even after living here for like 10 years, when people ask me that question, I still feel like something happens every day that is new and interesting, and I wouldn't see that and I wouldn't hear that, or I wouldn't experience that situation if I still lived in the UK. It's sufficiently different to make every day like interesting. Also, just life takes over, right? You don't realize. So one day you wake up and you think, hey, I've lived here for 3 years. I didn't realize it's gone so quickly. But I do enjoy the lifestyle here. People are generally pretty nice, and the way society works here is really not so different to living back home.
Right.
I don't think. People live in houses and people drive cars and people walk down the street and people wear clothes. It's people are just people. Yeah.
Right.
I think humans are just humans. I don't really like to think. I certainly did when I was younger. I sometimes got frustrated and thought, why do people do this? But now I just think, well,
why do Japanese people do this?
Oh yeah, sometimes, yeah. But the thing I always remember is, let's think, how can I say this without getting in trouble with my wife? So the reason I originally came to Japan was I met somebody at university and we were dating for a while. And when she came back to Japan, I decided to also come to Japan to try out working here. And obviously that relationship didn't survive, but even at that time, when I introduced her to some friends, some of them were kind of, I don't want to call them racist, but they said a few things like, "Oh, you're dating an Asian person." It's like, so what, you know? So if I was in my 20s when I lived in Japan then, and if I woke up on the wrong side of the bed and I was grumpy and stuff, it was really easy for me to get in a bad mood because something was inconvenient, because I'm not Japanese, I don't speak the language so well, and whatever. But now I just think, well, every country has differences, so just get on with it. Personally, I really love living here. I mean, we have a house now, so I'm definitely not leaving. We have 3 kids. I'm definitely not leaving. Yeah, I put my roots down here. I really enjoy living in this country. I don't know how it is in other places, but that's just my own experience.
I'm happy for you that you're settled down and you're happy.
Thank you. But what kind of challenges did you have settling down outside of Japan?
Big one was that I lost myself. Like my identity was to speak English a little better than other people in Japan. So that was like my confidence. But then over here, I was the, I speak the English the littlest. So that was. So well, my confidence.
It doesn't show, but.
I lost my confidence, and also like racism is very big here too.
Yeah.
Like, so much more than I knew. Actually, when I was in Japan, I didn't know anything about what's going on here.
Yeah. It's very concerning, actually. Like I don't wanna say anything overly negative, but last couple of years have been a big surprise to me, even though I've only ever been to the US once. Of course, everybody is different, and there are lots of, I listen regularly to a lot of American podcasts.
Okay.
And they are focused on current events, news, social situations, this kind of thing. And I find it genuinely very, very educational and very thought-provoking to listen to these podcasts, which is why I'm always wearing these on the train and when I'm walking, and I'm just listening to audio books or I'm listening to podcasts about these kind of topics. And the last few years has been very disappointing.
Yes. We were weeping when I remember the night Trump became our president.
I still thought it was a joke. I still thought he was gonna turn around and say, "Only kidding," but he didn't.
April Fool.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter what he says on the news because he always contradicts himself. I'm not shy, even here talking with American co-workers or friends, whatever. I will just say what I think. And some people don't like that because they think you shouldn't talk about politics or you shouldn't talk about religion or whatever. But he definitely, his behavior, his decisions, the things he says, it enables the worst in people to come out because they think, oh, well, the president said it, so it's okay for me to behave like this. And it's really not. I think I give my wife an earache sometimes when I'm watching the news because I start talking about it and she's just like, she agrees with me, but I think she's thinking, hi.
Does that get you to negative side sometimes? Because that happens to me, so I don't watch.
I give up on the news sometimes and just listen to music instead. Like I just this week I'm not so much watching the news because it has become so like how can they have the worst corona situation in the world? It's America. It's not a third world country. How did this happen? Well, we know how it happened. It happened because he
I
ignored
just
the
learned
problem.
that we
right?
are the worst from you.
Yeah, well,
That's
pretty
how
much,
it is.
pretty much. But it's happened because he ignored the problem.
Do you know about those ladies who are called Kelly? No. Kate?
Karen,
Karen.
yeah. Karen, the woman who was mean to the Starbucks barista, right? And they made a GoFundMe and gave him $100,000 because they felt bad that she was mean to him. Now she's in the news again. She said in the news recently she wants half of that money because it would never have happened if she hadn't been mean to him.
It's like going back the time when those ladies, those people.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to offend anybody, but like I feel like America has really gone back in time.
Yes.
And England could be doing. England's no better. I'm not defending England. England, I think, is not following a good path with this whole Brexit stuff, and it's very backwards thinking.
I hope it's just going. You know how? What is this called?
Yeah, a trough.
A trough.
Yeah, trough. Peaks and troughs.
Peaks.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I think we're going through a trough. I hope so. Yeah.
And this corona is like a lesson for all the human beings to realize what matters.
Yeah. Yeah, and the problem, of course, is there are still so many people who, even now, they think it's fake news. They think it's not real. They think masks are infringing on their personal rights. But it's like, okay, well, if you go to a supermarket, you have to wear clothes. Is that
That's true.
You know,
Yes.
if you want to drive a car, you have to have a license. When you take off in an airplane, you have to put your seat up and wear a seatbelt. Everybody does these things, but now we're talking about a virus which can kill you. Just wear a mask.
Yeah.
It's not difficult.
And stay home. Do people encouraged to stay home still in Japan?
So it pretty much feels like life has gone back to normal in Japan, but they are now being very careful with some businesses. So I think they're going to start closing bars and restaurants again, especially Tokyo, but across Japan, they are seeing the cases of coronavirus are going back up.
But first thing you want to do after corona, or back to normal?
Okay, maybe not a very standard answer, but I really want to take my kids to an aquarium. I think, especially William, his face when he sees animals on TV and stuff is like, and I want to take him to an aquarium, and of course the girls too, if they have one of these big walls, glass wall, and you can just stand and just watch things swim past your face, or like a tunnel and walk through and see the sharks and things. I think I want to do that just to see their faces kind of light up. Yeah, I think they are sick of watching TV, and we study and we read books, but I want to show them something of nature.
Yes, something out there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So that's what I want to do.
What was your biggest setback in life?
Oh, that's one of the questions. When I was thinking about our conversation, that was one of the questions which I really couldn't think of a good answer, but I guess yeah, okay.
That's a good thing though.
No. I mean, everybody must have something, right? But I think for a very long time until this year, and maybe last year actually, until last year, I really doubted my my ability, and I really doubted whether I could succeed. And I guess I came to believe that I definitely should just stay doing what I was doing, because it's safe. And taking a risk is a bad idea. Like taking a risk to become like a sole proprietor business teaching English, and to try and make some books and try and make a website or have online classes, and try to kind of market myself. What I have found since April this year, when I set off doing things more by myself and not so much as an employee, is actually everybody's really nice. I've had such positive interactions with many different people, and people so far, I have to be careful not to get overconfident. People have really enjoyed what I have given them.
Yes.
In like a work setting. And actually I'm now, for my family, I'm doing better than I was when I was too scared to take a risk. Financially, things are better. Time together, things are better. I can just ignore my phone all weekend because nobody's going to call me or bother me. Nobody needs to. It means I can just spend the whole weekend with my family if I want to, or I can go hide in my man cave. I get home before the kids go to bed, so I see my kids in the morning and in the evening. So I allowed myself to feel like I should just stay put and don't take a chance and just accept this is life. I did that for like 18 years. So now I realize that was a big setback. But maybe that's why I'm here now. Maybe I needed those 18 years to realize this.
Yeah, I agree. But hearing you saying that encourage a lot of people who have like not even have idea to be freelance or not, like it feels like like impossible choice for many people.
It's genuinely terrifying. I totally understand why so many people would not want to do it. And it's also, I don't want to be like the person who encourages somebody who's not ready yet either, because that is going to be kind of very destructive, right? But if you know for sure that you are good at doing something, and if you know for sure that you have access to a market where they want to pay you for that ability or that product, then try it.
Yeah. You have now another various lesson for your various things to teach your children, because they don't learn that from school.
Yes, I definitely, that's how I feel about my own schooling, and I guess you too. It's everybody is taught, go to school, go to college,
be a good employee,
get a job. Yeah, that's definitely how everybody is still kind of trained to think. But more and more we are living in like a gig economy, right? And you can do well in life if you can manage to fit together various different things. Even though I have books, I still consider in my core, I am a teacher. It's what I love doing the most. But making books for kids, like study books or picture books, it doesn't matter. They both fit very harmoniously with teaching. It's part of a whole. but it doesn't have to be similar things. So long as you are good and can make it work, you can be really in charge of your life, in charge of your time, and not like an employee who's kind of pushed down and stay there. It is possible, but I don't want to tell people to just do it.
Just jump out.
Yeah. It's not. It's definitely. It does require the right timing.
Right.
Yes. So all of my kids, they go to regular Japanese school, and it means definitely for my oldest kid, for Rachel, it was probably the most challenging, even though now I'm sure she doesn't even remember it. And at the time, it probably, she wouldn't have stressed out about it the way an adult might have. In our family, we speak pretty much nothing but English inside the house. That's the way it was since the eldest kid was born. And then outside of the house, depending on who we are spending time with, we will use Japanese. But it means when Rachel first started going to school, she started at nursery level, so she was like 2 years old. That was the first time when suddenly everybody, the teacher and all the other kids, were all speaking Japanese. I know she knew a little bit from playtime and stuff, but it was probably a steep learning curve for her. But at 2 years old, your mind is ready to absorb language. So definitely by the time she was 5 years old, her Japanese was way better than me. And now she just is, to a 7-year-old level, she is fluent. Same for my 5-year-old. To a 5-year-old level, she speaks Japanese just the same as all of the Japanese kids, Right now, William is speaking English, very basic English. Like if he wants me to eat something, he doesn't want to finish his food. He wants to give it to me. He says, "Daddy mouth, daddy mouth." And he tries to push the food in my mouth. He does speak to every morning when he sees grandma, he says, "Hayo."
So grandma speaks Japanese.
Yeah. She understands a lot of English, but she primarily speaks Japanese. But yeah, it's working out pretty good. I know that a lot of your audience, they don't have that situation at home, but that's why it's good to just have exposure to, again, like picture books and cartoons, or even audio, like listen to Disney songs in English rather than the Japanese version. It's sometimes a surprise for the parents of the kids I teach. They're at home and bath time, and the kids start singing some song which I did in their class, and the parent is thinking, what's this? And then later they come and pick up the kid, and they heard I was singing a song, and they tell me about it. It's
that's the song.
Yeah, exactly. Kids just pick this stuff up. It doesn't have to be like a study situation. So yeah, my kids just go to regular Japanese school.
Okay. So when you take them to England, is it the problem if they only they speak both languages?
They speak both. There are definitely some things the way a native British person speaks that they didn't learn from me yet, because like my accent is just how it is, and the words I use. I think my use of English has changed over the 19 years I've lived in Japan. I have to be really careful not to oversimplify. Some people don't know I'm doing it, but other people whose English ability is really good, they can tell that I'm kind of dumbing it down.
Yes.
And so some people get it, and some people even appreciate it, but there are also some people who are offended by that. They're just like, why is he talking to me like I'm so sorry. It's definitely subconscious. But I know that I sometimes do it, and I have to catch myself. But it means that some of the things my parents say when we take the kids to visit their grandparents. They say stuff that my kids aren't familiar with. That's good for them though. Like we plan when they're older to let them spend the summer there each year, just to kind of perfect their English.
That's good to hear, because I'm worried how my son, when they go back to, as he gets older, it's going to be difficult for my family in Japan to communicate with my son. That would be but you sound like it won't be.
I think you could, I mean, everybody has a slightly different approach, but so long as you keep exposing him to some Japanese, and the big thing, as a teacher, it's silly of me not to notice, but my wife pointed it out. She mentioned to me, like, their English reading and writing is really not good. And I thought, we talk all the time. They can just communicate no problem in English that way. But reading and writing, oh no, they're not going to learn that at school. They can write hiragana and kanji and katakana and all this stuff. But I've been practicing their reading and writing skills at home, and they have improved very quickly. So that's good. They must share some of their mum's DNA. My wife seems to just have a natural ability to pick up language. That's not me.
You're open.
But it's good though, because it means that I've actually been able to develop another area of my teaching that I can market.
Right. You are what is it called?
Like phonics teaching has improved a lot.
Good. So can you give those English learners in Japan some advice or messages?
Yeah, I mean, the best thing is to focus on stuff that either you or your kids are going to be interested in first. You know, don't try and push it like a lesson. Or by all means, sign up for English classes if the teacher is fun. Most kids will not stay. They'll give parents a really hard time, right? If they don't want to go to Maru Sensei's class, like, oh, it's boring, I don't want to go. So take classes, pay for classes if the teacher is fun. If you want to do stuff at home, do stuff that's relevant for your kids. If your kid likes Tomika or Purareru or Disney Princess or Purikyu or whatever, you can talk about stuff that's appropriate to their age based on those things. You can talk about singles and plurals, you know, what is it, what are they, colors, numbers, introducing names, who is he, who is she. This kind of level is enough for small kids. It doesn't have to be higher level than this, but it gives them a base and it makes them interested, because they associate speaking English with the things that they would talk about in Japanese. You have to avoid making English some separate thing which is difficult and boring because it's not relevant. It has to connect with what they like. So just treat it as part of your daily life.
Exactly. It's very important that parents are engaged too.
Yeah,
because
totally.
Yes, that once your child is in an English institute, the child magically improve the English skill. No, that's not the case.
Yeah. One thing, of course, I will not say any names or locations, but one thing which has often frustrated me is the English class finishes and I take the kids out to meet their parents. It's usually mum, right? In Japan, normally dad is at work, and talk with the mums, like, hey mums, how you doing? Today we talked about this and we did this song. And from, you know, somewhere over here, I just hear one mum's voice say, like, oh, that sounds difficult. It's like, don't say that. What you're saying is totally true. If the kid realizes or comes to understand that English is happening here, but outside in my home life, even my mom or my dad is not really interested in it. It's difficult, or they don't like it. The kid will naturally just put English into a compartment and leave it. It's not interesting. Yeah, definitely don't say it's difficult. And yeah, make it something that you can just talk about.
If it's difficult, then you can learn too. It's their learning opportunity too.
Yeah. I mean, I never say to my kids about kanji, I never say it's difficult. I do think it's difficult, but more than that, it's interesting. So let's take this approach. Like, oh yeah, I can see there's this part and this part. I know those ones, and oh, they come together and make this new kanji. I didn't know that. That's cool. Yeah, I'm not going to remember it.
Yeah. And also another thing is that a lot of English learners in Japan don't have purpose like me. Like the purpose is learn English. And they feel super lost when they go out of the country because all they enjoy is to learn English.
Yeah.
I really wish that when I was learning, I had something else, like, for example, I want to talk about space in English.
Yeah.
I want to talk about dogs in English.
Yeah.
It should have purpose.
Yeah. And helping with the purpose as well is, I think it's totally fine to speak English with other people of your own nationality. So in our case, another Japanese person is fine. But if you can find, again, a fun native English teacher, that helps the kids' purpose so much. They're so excited. Like, I want to go see Sarah Sensei. I want to go see Michael Sensei. And I want to tell them about space in English. They see the teacher as a fun object they want to spend time with, and they want to develop their English for that purpose. That's really important.
Yes. Even for adults, like, I want to date that guy. Then that's the biggest issue, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess in my younger time here, I definitely improved some of my Japanese to help talking with girls. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's important, right? You need to have this in your life. So.
Yes.
Hi everyone, my name is Rickie and I'm 42 years old right now. I've been teaching for about 20 years and my focus has always been with younger kids and teaching English language. And I've been doing that in Japan now for the last 19 years. Recently, I became a sole proprietor. I have my own business. I teach, and I'm also producing some kids' books to support that, and also some storybooks just for fun. So, AYAKA, thank you very much for having me on your channel, and よろしくお願いします。
カリフォルニアブッククラブは親御さんや保育士さん、英語の先生に向けた英語の歌のチュートリアル動画やおすすめの英語の絵本の紹介、インスタグラムや YouTube を通じて無料で利用できるコンテンツをたくさん用意しています。私のこの活動に賛同して応援してくださる方はぜひ下のチャンネル登録ボタンを押してください。あなたのチャンネル登録が私たちの活動の継続の力になります。